2 लाख कला 12 बंदा डरपोक ताड़े सिर्फ कह लगा उस चला जा अपने मुल्क है वो कैस नहीं है बड़ा ध्यान नहीं पिया।
Hi, my name's Faiza Tahir. I'm 21 years old. My nationality is British, but I ethnically identify as Pakistani. This documentary is about Asian women living in the Western world, and it's entitled Southeastern to Westernized. The aim of this documentary is to provide insight and perspectives on Asian women living in the Western world. This documentary will follow me growing up in England and my experiences and perspectives on that. As well as that, I will also be interviewing 2 other Asian women who will provide their insights and experiences regarding this topic. And hopefully by the end of it, people will have more of an understanding what it's like to live with two cultures that do not align. But before that, let me give you a bit of history. This is the partition history of South Asia. The British Raj, as it was formerly known, was a patchwork of princely states that coexisted peacefully before the British took over. When the British came to rule, they now used an infamous strategy they called divide and conquer. They separated the cultural identities of people who lived in the British Raj. These identities became extremely important to those who lived there, even more than what ethnicity you were or what language you spoke. This tactic was used to pit people against each other, ensuring their attention would remain on each other and not on their conquerors. In 1947, the British left India after ruling for 300 years. This is due to no longer being able to afford the subcontinent. The British Raj was partitioned into 2 states, India and Pakistan. India had a majority Hindu population, whereas Pakistan had a majority Muslim population. This partition led to the largest human migration in history. The British could see that this might start a civil war, so they wanted to speed up their exit from India. The PM at the time said that India would have independence by 1948. This all changed when a new viceroy to India and minor royal, Lord Louis Mountbatten, was appointed in March 1947. His job was to solve the issue of the partition by negotiating to the Indian politician leaders at the time and try to get Britain out of the country as soon as possible. In June 1947, it was announced that the country would be partitioned and India would gain its independence by August 1947, nearly a whole year earlier than intended. The task to partition the country was left to the British lawyer called Cyril Radcliffe. He did this by taking into account religious differences, railways and canals. He was given 36 days to carve up the map of South Asia. He split the country into 2 states, Punjab and Bengal, but he did not award the princely state of Kashmir to either country. He later admitted that he relied on outdated consensus and maps as it was too hot to carry out field work in June. Radcliffe had finished the maps 2 weeks before the independence date, but Mountbatten decided that he wouldn't announce it until after independence. On August 14, 1947, Pakistan claimed its independence, and the next day so did India. After this, the British army left with hardly any casualties or shots fired. But this left 2 countries in complete chaos as no one knew where the new borders were. When the borders were announced, this meant that many people were in the wrong place. This meant many people had to flee the country on foot, bullock cart, train, or any other possible way they could. It was estimated that 50 million Muslims were uprooted to start making their way east and west Pakistan, whilst Hindus and Sikhs went the other way. It was estimated that 1 to 2 million people lost their lives due to religious violence, starvation and disease, and more than 75,000 women were raped or abducted. The partition divided many families, and more than 17 years later, those families are still divided. Pakistan and India continue to fight over 3 wars, 2 over the state of Kashmir and 1 over the state of East Pakistan, which eventually became Bangladesh. To this day, there are still arguments over the border and water, and 70 years later, people are still in the wrong place. My experiences as a Pakistani woman growing up in England, I've always felt pretty isolated from both sides, or both cultures, shall I say. Um, in places like school and even in my own home. I think this has been the case pretty much my whole life. I've always been trying to find the balances between the Western culture and my Pakistani culture, like my roots. And it's kind of hard to find the balance between the both of them. But this is just my experience. Let's look at others.
Hi, I'm Shireen Mim Kauser, but I go by Mim.
Hello, my name is Karsko Suraja.
I'm 19 and I'm studying aerospace engineering here in Kingston University.
20 years old. I'm currently studying psychology at King's University.
I was born in Italy, but my parents are from Bangladesh.
And I'm born and raised in Norway. And my ethnicity is Sri Lankan Tamil.
So I was brought up in a really white area. Both of the areas actually, because like I moved twice, and no, I moved 3 times. But the first time I moved, I don't remember because I was like 2 years old. But all the areas that I lived in were like extremely white, especially during like the first 12-15 years of my life. And I have to say it really affected me. It really affected the way that I viewed myself, especially as a young white not white brown woman, and it just made me feel like I would have to like change myself, change my personality, change the way that I talk in a way that can be accepted by white people. And I felt that especially in middle school, when I wanted to be like one of the popular kids and stuff like that, which I was, like just because I was like the white small girls, and I would never let myself be seen with people of color, because there were a bunch of kids of color, and like that would be made fun of just because of their color. And the amount of times that I've been called the N-word as well. I'm not even black, I don't know why, but that's just how it is in Italy, and still how it is. I feel like if I hadn't moved here in England, I would still be whitewashed. Not as much as I was in middle school, because my views really shifted when COVID happened and like the whole BLM protests were happening in Italy as well. That really changed my views, and I was starting to like get out of my whitewashed personalities, as we could call it. And yeah, sometimes I would resent my parents for being brown. It's like, why'd you have to be brown in a white area? Why'd you have to do that to me? And obviously that's not how I view it anymore, because once again, since I moved here, it's been such a cultural shock to see all this diversity around me, because this thing in Italy is just so rare, especially where I come from, because I lived in the countryside. So that's where the white rich people live. So yeah.
Yeah, I would just I would try my best, I guess, to become white, like doing all the norm, forgetting, I guess, what happens at my culture at home. I would just like switch to this, I guess, this white version of me when I get out of my house, to fit in and stuff like that, and not that feel excluded from everyone.